This is Rogers TV.
The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Kevin Young, and I have with me Ange. Absolutely wonderful, Ange, to have you here. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Awesome. So I wanted to actually invite you onto the show because I've seen a lot of the things you've been involved with. CB Nui, you're also involved with the Native community, of course, and just reaching out to even the youth in the schools with Orange Shirt Day, which will have passed when this airs. So I wanted to have you on the show to talk a little bit about who you are, because I think a lot of people see this side of Ange that's just this community outreach Ange, but who is community living Ange?
That's a really good question. Bit of a loaded question there, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like you said, I work with Halibut First Nation, and my job is actually to do education outreach with youth. So that just takes up a lot of my time, which is good. It's a good thing. It's what I enjoy doing. I have a passion for it. But I also like to extend that a little bit past my job as well. So I try to volunteer for opportunities in the community where I can, such as CB Nui,
right,
which takes up a lot of time.
Yes, yeah.
But I love it. I really enjoy that. And I have certain passions that I don't mind putting my time and energy towards. And when it comes to things that are really important to me, it always goes in the direction of youth.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you a native resident of Corner Brook? Were you born and raised kind of a?
I wasn't actually born here, but I was raised here for the most part, and my family's from here.
Right.
So I won't get into the whole birth story because that actually leads into its own little fun story, but.
Sure.
Okay.
If you don't mind, yeah.
All right. How much time do we have?
We have time.
Perfect. Okay. So my parents got married in the late 70s, and they both lived here in Corner Brook, and they picked up and went out west like everybody did at the time, right?
Yeah.
So they moved to Edmonton, and they got pregnant like pretty soon after they moved there. So the story goes, I will give a little bit of a shortened version of it.
Sure.
Mom found out she was pregnant on her birthday.
Oh.
Yeah, so her
Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Mom. Her birthday is October 9th. I don't know when this is going to air, but in case we're anywhere around there, happy birthday, Mom. So yeah, she found out she was pregnant on her birthday, and she found out shortly after that she was pregnant with twins.
Oh.
Did you know I'm a twin?
I knew you were a twin, but I haven't met your twin.
And you probably won't. She lives in Nanaimo, BC.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, she's pretty far away.
Right.
Hi, Nikki, if you ever see this on Rogers TV. Yeah, so they found out they were pregnant. They gave her a due date of June 4th.
Right.
So she had a great pregnancy. Everything was good. There was a little hiccup around April Fool's Day when she decided to play a prank on my dad and say that, the twins were coming because twins can come early, right? Yeah, so a speeding ticket and yeah. April Fools.
Right.
So that was the almost divorce of my parents.
Okay.
So anyhow, they made it into June 4th. No babies. We were born the next day on June 5th, which was, so that's our day. So the funny part of this story is not so much their side of it, but I pretty much repeated history. Mm-hmm. So my ex-husband now, we were together we got together in 2003, 2004, and we moved to Edmonton.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I found out I was pregnant on my mom's birthday.
Oh, wow.
October 9th, yeah. So I was given a due date of June 4th, just like my mother was.
Right.
But he held off till June 5th, and I had him on my birthday.
Well, happy birthday to you, Mom.
Yeah, it was a pretty epic and painful birthday.
Well, of course. Yeah. But every year it's great to celebrate that with your child, I would imagine.
It is. It's pretty special.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it is.
So you were born in Edmonton. So how long living in and out west before you came to Corner Brook then?
Oh, not long. We lived there just probably for a couple of years. Then we moved back here, and then we moved to Ontario, and then we moved back here. We were kind of gypsies.
Yeah.
And so I've been here since I was probably 8 years old, so most of my life here. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. So you came here, so obviously not much memory, if anything at all, from Edmonton.
Well, not Edmonton, but the rest of it.
Yeah.
I have a memory like no other.
I lived in Ontario for quite some time as well, and I really enjoyed it. Where in Ontario were you located? Where is it?
We were in Trenton, which is like the Air Force Base town,
yes,
right?
It is, yeah.
So all of our friends we'd have friends for 3 months and they'd ship off somewhere, new friends would come in.
Yeah, awesome. And so you have a lot of memories of that. So what was it like living in Trenton then?
It was a sweet little town. I loved it there. And I just remember my sister and I biking to school. We would ride our bikes to school.
Nice.
And that was great too. It was like we were responsible for our own transportation, and it was a big feeling back then. I really enjoyed it. I actually recently looked at it on Google Maps to see like where our house was, where the school was, what the path we would have took was. I would never let my kids do that. But we were a product of the time, right?
Yeah. And actually, I have a son that just started grade 7 this year. That I'm more comfortable with him venturing out a little bit further from home. But then I think back to myself in grade 7. I think, wow, how did my dad and mom not have a heart attack?
Right.
We've definitely changed a lot over the years in terms of what we see. So it's sometimes it's pretty funny, but other times I think we had to remind ourselves, we were there at that age, and what we know we were doing and what we know we were able to get away with and kind of a thing. And you look at your own kids and you're kind of wondering, well, what are they doing and getting away with? And so I wonder sometimes if, as a parent, we are more restrictive of allowing our kids to have that same freedoms we had because we know what we did, or have we become just a little bit more protective because maybe a little bit of fear has creeped in society that didn't exist, when we were younger?
I think that answer is probably like really unique to each family.
Yeah.
Like for me, I kind of feel like my kids are latchkey kids.
Yeah.
Right? I'm a single parent, so my kids now, they're grade 7, grade 9, so they're old enough to care for themselves. But if I have something to do that I have to leave the house for a few hours and they're home by themselves, I carry around a little bit of this mom guilt, even though they are pumped that I'm out of the house.
Yeah.
And I know they're perfectly fine because I was babysitting younger than that, right? I was caring for other babies when I was in grade 6.
Yeah.
And that was just normal. So I know they're fine, but I think we are probably a little bit more protective over them. But on that same note, I would say personally in my household, I've given my kids a lot more responsibility just because I have to.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you did mention earlier that, of course, you've gone through a divorce, so you're a single mom.
Yeah.
What's that been like for you?
Amazing.
Yeah?
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
I've actually had a chance to grow. So for me, it's been like a journey. I've been divorced for 4 years, and I feel a little bit weird about talking about this on TV, but I will.
Okay.
It's fine, and a lot of people go through it. But it was kind of, I went from one part of my life where I thought that's what my life looked like forever.
Right.
To finding out that things could be so much different, and then learning a little bit more about myself and what I really wanted out of life, and that my kids and family, that was the biggest part of, and still is the biggest part of my life, but there are also other things.
Right.
So I've actually, I work full time, which I didn't at that time. And my job is something I'm so passionate about, and it's drawn me into other areas and different things that I'm passionate about. I went back to school, so I'm completing my business degree.
Nice.
And I'm also training to be a yoga teacher, and I do a lot of reading. I've opened up to a lot of self-help books and things like that, just anything to kind of propel myself in a positive way. So I just feel like I've had a lot of growth.
Awesome.
Right.
And I think that there may be some viewers that are watching now that might be going through something quite similar. And I can only imagine, because I've been fortunate enough that this hasn't been the case in my situation, but I can only imagine that at the very beginning there's a lot of fear and worry, anxiety. There's a lot of concerns of what's going to happen. Obviously, you've triumphed over all of that, and you seem to be an absolutely wonderful mom. And I think that's great, and it's a testament to you as an individual individual and your own personal growth. But any advice you want to share to some of the moms, even dads, that right now are a single parent, just going through this, early on in the stages, that may be feeling a lot of these negative emotions?
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of things that I guess I could have really used when I was at the very beginning of it. For me, I wasn't in an unhappy place. I was happy to be moving forward in a different direction, but there's so many different scenarios. It's really about following your own heart and listening to your gut. Like, if there's one thing I've learned just as a human, not even as a single parent or as a woman, just as a human, there's an intuition that lives inside of all of us, and we have to really honor that and feel it and follow that path. If you're not going to do that, you're not going to get where you're supposed to be. And that's truly how I feel. Yeah. So I think, you take your time to maybe grieve whatever you need to grieve, put the worry, pack it away, move forward, and honor that intuition. That's my best advice.
Right, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. And I'm sure that a lot of people are going to hear that and be thankful for that as well, because, one of the things that I've come to know, the more people I talk to, is that, we've all gone through something in our lives, good or bad, and there are other people that are kind of going through a lot of this as well. And when we have people like yourself who've gone through something that can share this advice to someone, I think it's very important. Now, you also work with the Native community.
I do.
Here.
Yeah.
And so a little bit about what life is like for you there. How is it, that you take your, obviously as a single mom, anything you take from that, from being a mom, into, the Native community, and what is your job really pushing out into, our community, representing the Native community?
So I would actually call that kind of a two-sided question, because there's the job aspect, in which case youth. It's all youth involvement. So I am responsible for, along with my friend Corinne, who is going to be with me absolutely everywhere. We facilitate the program at Kill Devil. Fingers crossed one day we get back out there. The grade 5 outdoor education program. So we spend a few weeks in the spring and a few weeks in the fall out there, and that's like on the ground time. It's a lot of time away from home, but it's a really valuable time for us as people to spend that time with schools and get them out on the land learning, giving them a little bit of the culture, and just being a part of their community as well. Like, I feel like us being a part of their community is just so valuable, right? That's how we make that connection with them. So we also do the school outreach piece, which we are in partnership with NLESD for that, so the school board. And we work on a number of projects. I don't even know if I could get into it all right now, but they're all youth-based. So our focus is to get into the schools for the most part and be a part of that fabric of their community in the school.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one part of it. That's my job. So the other part of it is, as a person, learning the culture and being a part of that community. It's a challenge not to be a part of it, because it's the most welcoming community I've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
But just to get in there and to learn, first off, that I don't have that cultural background. I wasn't raised with that. My mother wasn't raised with it.
Right.
That I grieved that, knowing that that language and that culture and that whole worldview is just something that I don't get to have, really.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, we all get to reclaim it and find it and search it out and learn more, which is wonderful, but it's also a loss. So reconciling that is challenging, but I think it's been a really important part of learning who I am.
Yeah.
And I would also say that the other side of the cultural community that's really impacted me is the leadership of women.
Right.
So the empowerment of women in that community and the projects that are put together to support women supporting women, lifting each other up, and not being exclusive, not being, oh, we're women and we don't whatever with the men. It's a very, very welcoming, very beautiful community, and it's something that lifts me up. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I know from my own experience, I have Mi'kmaq heritage, and my family were obviously growing up much the same way, strict of that heritage, of that culture, but I can remember going back to some of the members of my family. I remember a great grandfather that refused to have that taken from him. the end result was, of course, he couldn't get a job anywhere. You know, nobody would hire him, but he was proud of that. But then, you know, his children, my grandparents, didn't feel the same way, and it was a negative result, and it went through, you know, my life growing up. If anybody knew you were Native, you were picked on, you were made fun of, you were called names, and so on. But now we're seeing this, like you mentioned, there's reconciliation, and I think that a lot of people that are proud of that heritage, like you are, like I am, are really reaching out to learn more and growing more. And so programs like what you have, and that you take control of, it seems like you really get that program out into the younger group, so that these young children that are growing up now are experiencing what you and I didn't have the luxury of. So that's absolutely beautiful, and that's very admirable. I'm glad you're doing that. You said it was Corinne.
Yeah, Corinne Brett. Yeah.
Yes, awesome. So I'm really glad you guys do that. I'm really glad that's a thing that's happening. I know that my kids have gone through the grade 5 program at Kill Devil,
right?
And the things that they've learned from there and have brought home, you know, understanding a bit about our Native culture was absolutely fantastic.
Kevin, can I just mention something real quick?
Sure.
One thing that I really like to let people know is that all the work we do from Halibu First Nation is not done as a person or even as a small team. It's done as an entire community.
Right.
And if we didn't have the partnerships that we have with NLESD and Parks Canada and Kill Devil Camp and many even national partners that we work with, we could never make these things happen. So really our programming is based on the interest of our community volunteers. It's based on the interest of and the buy-in of the schools, the teachers, and parent support as well. So you can really see that interest and that drive to learn more about Indigenous people is really coming to the surface.
Right.
But you know, I could never talk about the work we do without saying thank you to all the volunteers that make it happen, right?
Yeah.
We're just one little piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. But not just a little big piece, I think. You know, because again, I know you're humble. But dealing with youth and working with the youth to encourage that, again, I want to state that it's very admirable. And I love that that's a program that exists and that we do have partners that are there to make it happen, and that I think is fantastic, and I'm really glad you're doing that, and I'm really glad not just you are doing that, but I'm really glad that it's being done.
It's work that needs to be done, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So when you work with the children, what is it you tell them a little bit about? I mean, obviously you're going to work with some children who may not have a Native background, and you might work with some who do. Is there anything that you kind of target a little bit differently with the youth, or what is it you tell the youth about, you know, the Native heritage here? Yeah,
so our outreach program is kind of a 3-piece program that we do mainly with grade 5 students at the moment, where we have a history lesson, we have an Indigenous craft lesson, and we have a talking circle.
Oh, wow.
And we do each of those in 1-hour sessions, and we always have community volunteers there. So the thing about it is that, like I say, I'm learning about my culture. I'm not an expert in anything by any means. The people at Halibu and the people in our education and training department on our team, we're kind of the connection point for the people in our community who have that really good, rich knowledge that they can give it to the kids. So we're connecting these volunteers in the classroom. So we always have invited guests. They come in, we introduce those guests, we say, hey, we're from Halibu First Nation, we have these programs, we're going to be here to support you and be a part of your school. We want to bring these people to you who can give you the information accurately.
Right.
So it's really about like being authentic and giving authentic information and not pretending like we know everything, because we really don't. If we have a day, and it has happened, where our volunteers were unable to get to a school, whether it be weather or illness, we go in and we just try to be really upfront. Like, we can tell you what we know because these people have taught us.
Right.
We can share that with you. We can also share something like talking about our own personal histories and our family trees and our own piece of history and how we fit into the puzzle, right? So there's that. And then there's the craft, which always has a teaching. We had to get the teaching before we could teach it.
Right.
So there's all these layers to this, right? But everything we bring into the school is it's supposed to be genuine, it's supposed to be authentic, but it's also accessible. So we're not going to go in there walking into a classroom speaking Mi'kmaq.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, that's not going to happen, right?
Right.
We want to be there, and we want people to feel like, hey, if you are a Hellboy member, or if you identify as Indigenous in any way, this is something you need to learn. You need to be a part of this. If you don't identify that, you still need to learn. You still need to know, right?
Yeah.
If you feel that it's a part of you and you feel comfortable with it, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and talking about identifying as Indigenous, I just want to say that, I remember when we were first recognized by the federal government, and myself and a few of my family members were thinking, well, we're proud of our heritage, that we've come to learn and grow, but we're not going to go and apply. We're not going to do that because we don't. But then someone told me something, and I've shared it with many people, and I want to share it again, and I want to know your thought on this part. But he said, applying for status isn't looking for any kind of special treatment. Applying for status is a voice saying to the government, we're here.
Yeah. I, like anything political, I try not to comment on too much. But I definitely agree, we can have a voice, right? I think it's important to have a voice, and whatever you're using that voice for, well, that's your personal business.
Yeah.
But I do agree, it's important that if you are a member of that community, put your hand up, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
But on that same note, if you are a person who has lost your status or never did the work behind it to get the family tree going, or for whatever reason, a card is not what says that you have that heritage.
No,
that's
exactly.
not what it's about.
And that's because that was my mentality, was I didn't need a card to say it.
Yeah.
But then my friend said, no, but let the government hear your voice. And so he kind of went on that, and I thought that was powerful of a message, because of course, I think a lot of us may be familiar, especially in the Grade 5 program, you teach the poem, wasn't my voice was taken from me, or I lost my voice.
Talk.
I lost my talk, there you go. I lost my talk. And so that's a poem that, we all hear, and then all of a sudden my friend said, well, let's get that talk back.
Right.
And this is one of the ways, and I thought it was fantastic. So aside from this, obviously, this job you do is really more than just a job. It's kind of you in your job, and it's kind of a bit of your life. But aside from that, what does Ange like to do in town? What do you like to do?
Ange doesn't have much time to do things. You know what? I'm a full-time student as well. So between working and school and my kids, trying to spend time with my kids and my parents who are super important to me, and my sister and her family who live here, that little bit there, and then a few of my really close friends. And yoga is a big part of my life, so I'm training to become a yoga instructor, and if I never ever teach a class, it doesn't matter. What I've learned has been so valuable to me, right?
Right.
Outside of that, I have a cat that I love to cuddle when I get a minute.
Yeah.
And that's about it. I try to fit little things in here and there, but honestly, I find that when I have free time, I like to volunteer that time doing something. I'm a chronic volunteer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an issue.
And I think it shows, and it shows in what you do, and because I think that to have the mentality or even the heart to be involved in the programs that you're involved in for work, that kind of pours over to the same mentality and heart you had to be a volunteer.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you might volunteer with in the community? I
have a really long list of volunteer work that I have done. Everything from breakfast programs at school. A lot of it is school-based because my kids going up through, I wanted to be involved. So I always sat on the school council. I always helped out with fundraisers. I always did little breakfast program things and little fundraisers, whatever it was that was going on, I was a part of it. I also started working with an after-school program at their school, which was not necessarily a volunteer thing. I did get paid for it, but it grew into something more, and so like everything does, right?
Yeah.
I volunteered with the SPCA. I volunteered with CB Nui is a really big one because it's such a big festival.
Right.
And it's
not just a couple of days, 3 or 4 days that we see.
It's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of planning that goes into that. So I've actually, some of the volunteer work that I would usually do, I've kind of moved away from it a little bit. So I'm not as active in the school community besides the breakfast program. I still volunteer for that. But I want to make room for things that I really enjoy doing, the festival being one of them.
Right.
And I want to make time to work with youth in a social justice capacity. So there's more on that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the things that I want to push for in my life. So those are the avenues that I'm looking for at the moment, right?
Awesome. So very quickly, tell me, what do you think the future looks like for Ange here in Corner Brook? Obviously, there's something keeping you here.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's my just absolute love for the place. I think to me, it's paradise on earth. It's my favorite place of everywhere I've been. But what is it that you see with Ange going into the future? You know, what's life going to be like? What do you expect to see?
Well, I think that, okay, so in terms of my job, I love what I do. Will I be there forever? I mean, I don't know. Who knows, right? Who knows what will happen in the future? I do see myself working in that capacity in some way, probably for the rest of my life. That's
Right.
really my passion. I want to finish up my business degree, and I hope to get a master's as well. I'm really, really, like, something deep inside of me says that I want to be a part of wellness, equity, ethics, something like that all mashed together in the business world.
Right.
Like doing good things, good stuff,
Yeah.
right? That's really important to me. Am I always going to be in Corner Brook? Who knows? The mountains call out to me. Oh, the mountains, they live in my heart.
Right.
Deep in my soul. And that's where, like, my time in Edmonton, it's not that I remember Edmonton, I remember the mountains, because we
Right.
would travel into the mountains a lot, and that is just something that calls out to me. So I go there from time to time, and I find it really hard to come back.
Yeah, yeah.
So who knows? Who knows what that might look like? Am I going to be single forever? I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm loving life. Like my life, I'm living my best life right now.
Right.
I'm 40. I'm like loving it. Everything is great. I mean, do I have issues? Of course, we all do.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I'm really happy with the direction things are going with. Yeah.
Right, and so that's actually, it's funny you say that, because I really wasn't expecting, you know, am I single forever? Yes, I'm loving it, because it's really not what you hear too often, but I'm great that you feel that way, you know, it's fantastic, and I think that, you know, some people might need to hear that as well.
Yeah.
Ange, I want to thank you for being a part of the show today, and I want to thank you for coming by.
Oh, Kevin, no, like seriously, I have never been so flattered with the way that you're speaking to me and everything. It just makes me feel so good. I'm so glad you have this program.
And it's one of my favorite things in the world to do, and it's a pleasure to be a part of that. And for you who are watching at home, I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch the show. Be sure to say hi to Ange if you see her in public, and if you're looking for a volunteer, I think I know a good one. So be sure to watch our next episode again. Thanks. Bye for now.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Sports fans know Sundays are for football. That's why you need NFL Sunday tickets. With NFL Sunday Ticket, you'll get every live game every Sunday all season long. More plays, more action, more to love, live in HD. Order NFL Sunday Ticket for only $199.99. Get up to 200 regular season games every Sunday afternoon. Call 1-888-ROGERS-1 today.
I took this picture of my wife when she was near death, waiting for a liver transplant. And this is her now.
Hello, I'm Lise Breckenridge. A liver transplant saved my life.